Good morning. Welcome to another Tech Tuesday. My name is Ryan Goodman, and I'm excited. Looks like we got most of the kinks worked out in delivering these live broadcasts through Google Live or Google YouTube Live. So today we're here to talk about filtered summary and how we can filter and aggregate data on the fly using one of our plugin components that really has become one of the most popular add-on components that we know of, with thousands of developers now using this particular component, which is part of our Essentials bundle. And the goal is really simple, especially for our Tech Tuesday today. It's take data and allow a dashboard developer to configure a dashboard so that an end user can filter down and view aggregate results of any business data. And so I'm going to show you today how we can use filtered summary to take a singular query and adjust it so that we can present aggregate data back to the end user. So I'm going to flip off my camera and go right into the screen sharing portion of this particular webinar. And so now you guys should see my screen. And so what we have here is a fairly simple Excelsius dashboard. This is actually based on a Tech Tuesday that I did a couple weeks ago for an executive dashboard. And I'll actually show that to you guys real quick. And the result of that particular webinar was that we got a lot of excitement, a lot of emails requesting this particular template. But we also had some customers and partners and of course I have an invalid license key. We had some other partners complain that there's just too much to cover in such a short period of time. And they wanted me to back up and spend more time just on filtered summary because that was really a bulk of the presentation. So yeah, the joy of live events, I didn't really try previewing this before the event. So I won't be able to show you the end result here, but we should be able to show you live from the website here. So if you go to the CMAPS Analytics site, you go to CMAPS plugin, and then you scroll down, you can see here's the actual executive dashboard that I was showcasing. And really it was kind of cool because we have a single query that is powering all of these different geographic views, so I can look at it by territory, by region, and by country, but then I can also slice and dice by different measures, and then also drill and filter and view these measures dynamically based on what I select. So basically all of this content, excluding the monthly data, is being driven by a single query and a series of filtered summaries. So let's spend some more time to show you how we can take a single query and be able to filter that down and constrain the data down so that you're not having to rebuild 4 or 5 queries just to show different grains of the same data. All right, so let's take a look at the data real quick. And I'm actually going to, let's see. There we go. Sorry, my screen's flickering there. You guys are getting my entire screen, one of the joys of a live broadcast. So here's the actual data. And what I was trying to do was to zoom in just a little bit so you can see the data, those of you who are viewing this on YouTube. You know it's kind of hard to view. So we have some territory data, we have region, we have country, and we have a product or products. And so the idea is that I want to break down the revenue, profitability, and maybe my operating expenses for my executive dashboard by these different geographic grains and by product. And so if we were to want to build a dashboard to show all the different ways of kind of slicing this information for a business user, I'd have to build 4 or 5 queries. I'd have to build one query just to give me a list of the regions. I'd have to build another query to give me my breakdown by territory, then by region, then by country, and maybe multiple queries by product with various parameters so that I can get the data, or I'd have to rely on a whole bunch of Excel formulas to get me there. Well, that's really why we built filtered summary. We were tired, exhausted of having to jump through so many darn hoops just to build a simple aggregate of a reasonable amount of data. So with filtered summary, there's only a few properties that you have to worry about. It may feel overwhelming when you open it, but really all you have to do is define your source data. And so the master question that we always get, regardless of um, the dashboard requirements, is, well, how big can this source data get? Because once users start using filtered summary and see how much time it saves, they want to build the entire data model using filtered summary. And so really the recommendation for this particular component is 10,000 points, right? So it can be 10 by 1,000 rows. It could be 5 by 2,000 rows. The rule of thumb is that filtered summary is generally better in dealing with less columns and more rows. So if I only had 5 columns here, I could probably squeeze more than that, but rule of thumb to make sure that your dashboard performs well and that you can use multiple filtered summaries against the same data source is 10,000 cells of data. We have plenty of people stretching it far beyond that, but that's generally what we throw out there to be safe. So we define our source data, and I could even include additional source data if I want, because maybe my query is going to bring me more data than I really need. It will automatically ignore end blanks, so there's no concept of ignore end blanks. It will just automatically ignore anything that's blank at the end. And then we have a destination range. So a destination range should, depending on how you're using filtered summary, may be the same size as the source data. So we have 8 columns of data. So I'm going to create another 8 columns of data that happens to be the same size in rows. So you can see we go down to 73. So now I have my destination data. So the idea is simple. Filtered summary is going to take the source data, apply some calculations, maybe some aggregation, and dump the results in the destination data, or destination range. All right, so now we've got our source data defined, and we need to tell filtered summary, what am I going to do with this data? Am I going to summarize it or aggregate it? Am I going to filter it down based on inputs? What are we going to do? Well, so let's focus on the aggregation or summarization of our data first. What we have here is this aggregation column index. And what this does is it tells filtered summary what column I'm going to aggregate the data by. So a number 1 would aggregate the data by column 1. Now here's the cool part about filtered summary, is that I don't have to make a bunch of bindings, cross my fingers and pray that I've done everything right, and then hit the preview button. We have a data preview option. So if I hit preview, it's going to take the source data, run it through all the calculations, and so show you what the results would look like before it was stuck in the destination range. So you can see here that we've rolled the data up by column 1. Now I could come in here, hit column 2, hit preview, and now I've aggregated the data by column 2. Or maybe we had our product, which was column 5. So if I go to column 5 now and preview, now we get a roll up based on my product. Now the nice thing is we can actually combine these things. So what if I wanted to see by region and by product? So I can enter 1, 5, and it's going to give me not only the distinct regions, but also the distinct product names. And so not only can you type these in, but more importantly, you can bind these to a cell in your spreadsheet so that you can dynamically change these things during runtime if you're so inclined to do so. So I'm going to use column 1 as my default, and so now I'll use my spreadsheet to make these modifications so I don't have to keep going between tabs. Alright, so we've got our aggregation down, but if I scroll over here, you'll notice a couple things. You can see that it gives you a comma-separated list of all of the values for every other column in the cells. And if we scroll down to the numeric values, I'm getting the same. So I'm not actually getting aggregate data here. We can change that on the General tab. So if I go down to the last 3 columns of data, so column 8, 7, and 6, and I can name them too. One of the features I always ask for is the ability to automatically name these, but that's another conversation. So these, now they're labeled at least, so I can tell what the heck these are. And so what we can do is set a calculation type. So right now it's a comma-separated list, but I could also do a sum. I could do a count, which is going to count the number of records, or I could do an average. Now you can only do one calculation per column. So if I go back and preview, you can see I get my sum here. I get the count of the number of records, though I probably want to normally sum this, and then we get an average. So pretty simple to create this kind of aggregation or summarization of our data. So once again, if I wanted to see the aggregation by product, I simply change my column index and now I get that data. Now the other cool thing about this preview window is that if I wanted to build a visualization based on this information, I don't want to have to be doing this with a blank cell. So what you can do is you can click on this copy data to clipboard and paste it right into your spreadsheet. So now we've got a quick mock-up of exactly what the data will look like, so I can build my chart, table, scorecard, or whatever it is that I want to build my result against. So pretty powerful stuff. Now we get to the last piece, which is the filtering. How do we filter this down? So what if I don't care about all of my territories? What if I just want to see Europe? How do we do that? So we have column filters. And so if I have a cell here that I'm going to define as a column filter, I can say, I'm going to type in Europe. And what I can do is I can bind this column filter to the cell that has Europe. So now if I re-preview my data, I'm only going to get Europe. Well, what if I wanted Europe and Americas? Once again, we can use a comma-separated list to get multiple values. Or what if I wanted to see all values? Now this is something that Excelsius just doesn't do at all. I can use an asterisk and that will give me all values once again. Now asterisk is not a very user-friendly way of defining my input values. Those of you Excelsius gurus out there, you'll be able to use lookup values or use Excel or whatever it may be. But we did create a nice little feature on the behavior tab where you can actually change the wildcard character. So you can tell the filtered summary to get all values using something other than the asterisk. So in this case, what if I want it to be all? So I can change it to all. So now what this means is that all of the column filtered properties, in order to show all records, instead of using asterisk, which now would break the model, we need to use all. So now all will bring me everything, or I can bring one record at a time. Now the other thing is, in addition to equals filter type, we have multiple filter types. So if I wanted to do contains, so if I just say AS and go preview, it's going to show me Asia Pacific and Americas. If we wanted to use not equal to, I can type in Asia Pacific, and it's going to show me everything other than Asia Pacific. And greater than, less than, and between. We also have, if you wanted to use a filter based on values. So you can actually constrain data in filtered summary based on data itself. For these to work, all of the data in your column has to be numeric. But we don't need to go into that. And so that's the basics for filtered summary. Now the last thing that we have at our disposal is the ability to obtain all of the values from my source data columns. So in other words, I've been typing in Asia Pacific, I've been typing in these values here, but the question is, how do we get these values in the first place? Well, list destination takes care of that for us. So for instance, if I wanted to get all of the distinct values in column 1, I could use list destination, bind that to a range, and what that will do is give me a distinct list of all of the values in column 1. So if I wanted to use a selector and hook that up, I'll set a default value to position 1, ignoring blanks. So what will happen is when I preview this, filtered summary will get all the distinct values from this column and place it into my text box. And that was using the list destination. So this list destination property is what gets us the distinct values. So let's preview this, make sure it works. So there we go. It gives me just the distinct list so that I can reuse those to populate my filtered summary. And that's basically it. For those of you who are using Business Objects BI 4.1, filtered summary also has a direct binding option for source data. So in other words, if you create a BI query, you can actually use the results from the BI query as your source data to perform all of these filtered summary calculations. So you don't actually have to bind the source data into the spreadsheet. You can suck the data right out of your BI query, start performing calculations and aggregations, and then hit or spit the results back into the spreadsheet for your data visualization. So very powerful capabilities, all baked into a very simple and fairly inexpensive component set. So that basically covers us for today. Filtered summary, soup to nuts. Hopefully that provides you with all of the capabilities that you guys need to build more powerful dashboards. So if you have questions on filtered summary, you can certainly go to our website at centagonsolutions.com. You can go to our products, dashboard tools, essentials bundle, learn more about all of these components. So filtered summary is one of 4 components that essentials bundle includes. So you can always go in and learn more, view other videos, download a trial, and get this functionality for yourself if you're not using it now. If you've already downloaded it, then hopefully we've provided you with everything you need to master this particular component. So thank you again for joining another Tech Tuesday. We'll see you next week for one of the last Tech Tuesdays of the year.